Well, everyone, today is the day. It looks like it is our final video on Starfield, probably ever, because I think this really marks the last big update for the game. So I am here, ready to go through it. In case you're not familiar, today is a big day for Starfield. It launches on PlayStation 5, and they also are bringing two big updates in addition to that: the Free Lanes update and the Terran Armada DLC. Now, notably, the Terran Armada DLC is not being advertised as an expansion, but rather as a story DLC, which to me would make me think, along with its roughly $10 price tag, it makes me think that probably this is more of like a mission, like an extended mission, than it is an actual expansion, which, I can't really blame them. Last time they tried an expansion with Shattered Space, it didn't do too well. And even though it was labeled an expansion, it was about 5 hours long of core story content, maybe another 5 hours if you did every single little bitty thing that the DLC had to offer. But this time around, they're framing it differently as just a DLC. Now, I actually already filmed this entire video once already. I filmed it, but I had to redo it because this DLC, the Terran Armada DLC, didn't unlock for me or a bunch of other people for hours. It was kind of bizarre. And I looked it up, and a bunch of other people were having the same problem, where basically if you had the premium edition of the game from back at launch, you're supposed to get the Terran Armada DLC included, but for many people it was not included with Steam's system, so it wasn't showing up, wouldn't install, was trying to get you to buy it again. It was a whole thing, but we were able to sort it out with a lot of restarts, and I'm sure they did something on the back end to deal with it. But here we are now in the DLC, ready to go. Now, my goal with this video is to show you what's new and to also talk about the long-lasting legacy of Starfield, because this is probably, like I said, the last time that we talk about the game. I expect that this is probably the final big budget thing they do for the game. So I think it's where we leave it off, because after this, it's going to be all eyes on Elder Scrolls 6, which is going to be fascinating to see. So I'm going to buckle in. I'm going to take off the Starfield coat because it's freaking heavy and hot. It's not that comfy, shocker. But I appreciate them sending it back at launch. And I'll be honest, a couple of the things that they've added are legitimately cool. So for example, there's one new system that they've added, which is called cruise mode. So if you hold down T, you can see now we can actually warp at much faster speeds than before, flying around the planet. It's no longer just like a 2D representation, which is what it was before. You still can't fly, of course, straight down to the planet's surface, but you can get going way faster. So you can navigate these areas you previously used to have to just fast travel to. You can now do that pretty much seamlessly by just going straight over here. And as you can see, we've arrived. We overblew it. Oops. Okay. Hold on. Turn around. Beep, beep, beep. Okay. There it is. We'll go in a little bit slower. There we go. Sensor contact, orbital deceleration. Okay, that's fine. And here we are at the ship to start the DLC, which is legitimately, I think, a cool addition. They've also added it so while you're in cruise mode, you can get up from the ship and walk around. And so you can talk to your companions and do whatever you need to do while even traveling through space, which is legitimately kind of cool. But I think for most people, it's going to be a cool quality of life improvement, kind of like the rover, where it makes the game better, but it doesn't fundamentally change the game. That's kind of what this is. One of the things that was rumored to be added to the game for, at this point, 1.5 years since the last expansion was, of course, going to be some sort of clever cover for the load screens when you go from a planet's atmosphere down to its surface. This would basically have worked very similarly to how Star Wars Outlaws works, where you go from the planet's atmosphere and then you select a place that you want to land, and the ship cleverly glides right into cloud cover, and it flashes the screen white, and it's covering up a load screen, but allows you to go seamlessly, at least it appears, down to the planet's surface. It does a really good job of covering up the load screen that is happening in the background. People thought that's what they were adding with Starfield. It was rumored and discussed online for, like I said, 1.5 years that was one of the things they were targeting, and it's just not here. And so I don't know if they were working on it and couldn't get it working fully, and so they just cut it. I don't know if that was never in the books and people were just mistaken, but either way, it's not there. And I don't know if it makes that big of a deal to people who really like Starfield, but it's not here. So when you want to land on a planet's surface, you do still have to sit through a load screen to do it. But now you can navigate within a solar system without having to go through load screens. You can still jump to them if you want to, but like you just saw, I was fast traveling to this planet, Nirvana, and then I flew to this location without having to go through a load screen between. So it's better, but it's still not perfect, you know. It's better. But of course, probably the biggest thing for today is this new DLC that allegedly adds new content and a new faction basically to the game. It's only $10 and they're describing it as a story DLC. So we're gonna see what it's got to offer. Basically, you started by going to Aquila, you listen to a radio broadcast there, and then you go and travel here, you listen to this broadcast, and then it kicks off. Don't worry, in case you want to experience it for yourself, I will not show story spoilers if I can help it, but I'll just forward through it for sake of protecting your interests in that case. Now, I guess I should give a little brief background with my my stance on Starfield as it is, because I talk about the game a lot, or I at least have. And it's because at my core, I am an old school BGS fan, like going back to the days of Skyrim and Fallout 3. You know, those were the golden era BGS games as far as I'm concerned. And so seeing the route they've taken in the last decade or so has really been frustrating to me and left me, and I think a lot of other players, disenfranchised, seeing the focus shift away from what I think they were good at and more towards these live service elements, things like paid mods, Fallout 76 and its live service offerings, and in my opinion, egregious monetization, things like that I think have undermined Bethesda's own creative interests. Like, we're even in a weird spot with like Starfield, where they have a financial incentive to sell paid mods to people that fix the game and provide additional content. And those are mods that they don't have to make themselves, and their community will make for them. So they basically have built a platform where they make more money if the game is more lacking in official content, because their audience will go and seek out additional content from their partners that they don't have to pay up front. And according to some like leaked documentation, it looks like Bethesda / Xbox takes potentially the lion's share of most of these paid mods that go through. There was one individual creator who spoke on condition of anonymity because he was breaking an NDA by talking about his revenue split on these paid mods, but he said that it was approximately 30% that he took home, and I believe it was 40% went to BGS and 30% went to Microsoft for like hosting the transaction, or to the platform holder if you bought it through Steam. Steam would take the 30%, but Bethesda / Xbox would make the majority of the money in those transactions, which is crazy. And so I've been really frustrated with the direction they've taken the company and their IP. And then I thought Starfield as a game itself was basically just a perfect, oh my God, I pressed T instead of R. Damn it. That's what I get for having sausage fingers. Tell you what, don't Google that, by the way. It's a medical condition. Anyway, I've been frustrated with all of this. I just think that Starfield is a game that had a lot of clever ideas, like a lot of like cool concepts, but I think that BGS and the Creation Engine were probably the two worst matches for making this type of game. Like, I think that BGS is really good at handcrafted environments. Why am I taking contusions while sitting in a chair? What? I don't know. Who knows? But I think like BGS is good at handcrafted environments that they build that, you know, build on that sort of ADHD, ooh, piece of candy mentality of open world design. They're really good at it. It's why games like Fallout 4 and Fallout 3 and Skyrim are so fun to just get lost in. But Starfield is the polar opposite. It's procedurally generated, repeated locations. It's kind of soulless and lifeless once you get past a certain point and start to see the seams and how they've glued this thing together. And I think that that's why it frustrated me. In addition, I think that the Creation Engine as a tool set is just not very well equipped to make a game like this, because it's built around individual little sets and rooms, and that's what it does. That's what it's good at. And it can function well in that regard in a game like, you know, a Skyrim, where when you enter a castle's grounds, you are naturally going to have a load screen. And I think people can put up with that. But where you run into trouble, of course, is when you try to make something the size of a galaxy. you start to run into problems like that, which are much more severe than I think BGS anticipated. And so what you end up with is Starfield, which is just technologically behind the curve, especially when you compare it to its competitors like No Man's Sky or Star Citizen. And narratively, it's kind of lame and uninteresting. The factions are basically just what you would expect to see in an Elder Scrolls or Fallout game, but with space helmets. And so it's like space pirates and space cowboys and space police officers, and it's just very, very uninspired, I think, and just kind of lame. But this DLC promises to add something fresh, something new. It seems like they are trying to do something a little different. They're bringing a new faction to the table with some new enemy types, and you know what? I'm here for it. But the last thing that I've been really frustrated by, and I've seen a lot of Bethesda fans talk about it too, is the drop in output and consistent quality. Like, it's been a major problem for them. Major problem. Like, for example, when they did the Fallout Anniversary update, they broke VATS, and it took them 19 months to patch it, which is insane. And you know, language gets thrown around a lot when people are like, something is unacceptable. That type of thing is unacceptable. I think that's approaching unacceptable. Like the idea that you break your game, a core gameplay mechanic of your games, Fallout and VATS is like pretty important. And it was so busted that it took them literally a year and a half to fix it, which is insane. And you pair that with other things like the fact that this DLC took a year and a half to get. The cruise mode is cool, but like, did that really need to take like 2.5 to 3 years to get out since launch? I mean, you compare it to some other studios like Pearl Abyss and what they've been doing with Crimson Desert, where players complain about one thing and it's fixed within like minutes. It's insane. It's just outrageous. And like I said in my review of Crimson Desert, you know, it makes it look like other studios are not even trying. It's why I pointed to BGS, because like, you know, I think gamers have gotten used to a certain cadence of updates, but it doesn't have to be that way. When you experience what a studio is able to do when they have like some serious hustle, it changes things. I mean, it'll really blow you away. And that's what's happened with some of these recent studios showing what they're capable of. It's absolutely mind-boggling. And I think it should be a wake-up call to like a BGS to take it up a notch and really, you know, try. But I guess this DLC, we'll see how hard they are trying. So far, it's mostly just like busy work, go here, talk to this person, not even talk to this person, listen to a radio broadcast, put this item in this slot, and then keep walking. Like, there's not really anything narratively happening despite there being dead bodies everywhere, so that's not good. But you know what? I don't want to count my chickens before they hatch. I want to give the game and its new DLC a fair shot, because it's possible that this has a ton of content and we're all going to be blown away. Okay. Okay. That's not good. Okay. A unique little set piece framing with unique sound effects tied to it. That's good. Oh, I didn't even see him there. You know, I realize as I'm talking about all of this, I'm like, I'm kind of surprised, because it's like, you know, I think for certain studios, you demand and expect different things. So for like BGS, we have certain standards and expectations for what they do, and for other studios we might have different standards and different expectations, and so our opinions of what they need to do to impress us shift and change as time goes by. And this is one of those times where I'm like, oh, I saw a character walking by, or a robot guy walking by and shooting somebody, and then a loud sound triggered when he shot the NPC. And I was like, ooh, that's cinematic. But like, if we look at so many other studios, that's like the barest of the bare minimum. You know, but I'm so used to like playing a game like Starfield and just being like, oh yeah, no, I mean, it's pretty barely serviceable. It's not great. And so to see something like that, I'm like, wow, that's crazy. But I want to touch on that and just be like, I think it's normal for there to be sort of double standards for different games. I'm not saying it's ideal or good, but I think that's normal, because there's some types of games or some IP Ooh, X-Tech. We'll talk about this in a second. There's some games or some IP where even if the game is not a masterpiece, you'll still have a good time, right? Like if I'm playing a remake of Stronghold Crusader from like the 90s, or if I'm playing Red Faction Remastered or something, I'm gonna like that even if comparatively it's not like on the same quality level as a bunch of other stuff, because I have a bias towards that IP. Same if I play like a game set in ancient Egypt. Full disclosure, I'm biased. I have a pyramid behind me. I love ancient Egypt. I find it fascinating. I'm biased towards that. It's going to get extra points. So I'll have a double standard for that game or studio making that type of game, right? So I think that's normal. But the point is that that standard has to be justified by something else making up for the shortcoming, right? So like if there's a game like a Starfield or a Fallout or Elder Scrolls, it's okay if it's not technologically cream of the crop, if it makes up for it in amazing exploration. Just like Crimson Desert, it's okay if the story isn't fantastic if the open world adventuring is phenomenal. So you may end up with like a double standard when it comes to the story, where one game you demand a better story than the other, but it's justified because the gameplay makes up for the story lacking, or maybe the story's so good it doesn't matter if the gameplay is fantastic. You know, like I think there's always got to be some balancing act, even if your standard for one aspect of a game is different. For BGS games more recently though, I feel as though we've seen degradation in quality, but we haven't seen that counterbalance. So we've seen things like gore removed from a game like Starfield, but we haven't seen that counterbalanced with like really high quality cutscenes or really good facial animations or amazing writing or gameplay systems that blow us away and amazing exploration. It's just been all downside and things being stripped out while everything else continues to degrade as well. But having said that, let's set that aside for now and talk about X-Tech real quick. X-Tech is a new material they added to the game with this DLC that is specifically for like end game upgrades. Again, it's targeting people who are already fans of Starfield and want like something to get another few dozen hours out of, and that's what this is. It's a material that, as you can see, is used for crafting enhancements to your gear and ship, and that's what it is. So if you're wondering what that is, that's what it is. It's an end game material they've added, which I think is good. You know, if you're trying to build out an end game mode and like serve your longtime fans who have been with you since the beginning, it makes sense to give them something like that. It's not going to convince somebody who doesn't like Starfield to all of a sudden love Starfield, but it is going to give the people that do like it a little something extra. One of the things they also said was like key to this DLC was that they were adding in like old world looking ballistic rifles that are inspired by like AR-15s and stuff. Like they fire fine. They're not better than what you will have by the point you're doing this DLC in the game. Like to start this DLC, they want you to be level 50, and honestly it controls kind of identically to the other weapons I already have that I've like really taken care of and like really farmed out. So I don't think they are going to replace anything, but better late than never, I guess. Like compared to a kitted out Beowulf, I don't think anything's gonna beat that. Like, yeah, technically it's a new weapon, it's good to have, but I don't think it will practically make a difference for players by this point in the game. You know, I don't think they'll care. The game does still have the problems with like bullet sponge enemies where they just have like 2 or 3 health bars stacked up, but they did bring something new to the table with this DLC, specifically with like enemy resistances and certain specific perks for them. So let's see if I can find another enemy to show you. Here, take the ID, swipe that. Okay, go through the door. So like when I find a high level Terran Armada soldier or whatever you want to call them, you'll see that they have a few different like tags, these little like circles underneath their health bar, and those actually specifically relate to abilities or resistances and things that they have that could specifically counter certain things that you're doing, which is a genuinely cool concept and cool idea. So far I haven't noticed a need to like change tactics or anything. You just still end up filling them with lead, and so it doesn't really change a lot. But I do think it's a cool idea. It's a cool concept, and it's one I want to see more of. So maybe later in the DLC we'll find something really novel and crazy. Let's see. Look at this. You know what's about to happen? What's up, dude?
Visualizing.
Right there.
Current frame. Registered as Terran. Aggression levels. Elevated. Evaluating adversarial response.
Okay, we're all friends. I know I just killed a lot of your robot
Designation,
friends, but we're enemies. We're not enemies.
accepted.
Freudian
Only
slip.
relations, primary and secondary. Classification. Enemy. Status pending. Aggression protocols. Deferred.
Okay.
Control routed to processor.
Okay. You take orders from me now.
Evaluating speech. Tone. Not approved. Orders not yours to dictate. Attempts to override will be met with hostility. Continuing analysis.
Okay. This is a more general sci-fi trope that I find annoying. It's when robots talk like a robot written in the 1970s. You know, like I get it. It's like the stereotypical robot analyzing options, deciding not to freak out, anger initiated. Like I get it. That's kind of like the 70s archetype. But I just, it drives me crazy. It drives me crazy in like old school movies and sci-fi and in stuff like this, where I'm just like, dude, you're on a space station and like you're on spaceships with grav drives. Like, I think if anybody could figure out a decent LLM, it would be these guys, but whatever. But anyway, we now have a new companion at our side that we can use and navigate the systems with, which is cool. And look, he's fighting by our side. That's nice. Go team. Good Delta. Good Delta. Good boy. That's a good boy. AI is still not fantastic. I don't know what he's doing, but okay. He's just kind of standing there. Not a lot of advanced tactics taking place. Despite being like militaristic robots, they're not that crazy. He's at least crouched behind something. That at least makes sense. I'll take it. But listen, regardless of whether this DLC is like amazing or just what I think it's probably going to be, which is like a series of combat arenas and then some new dynamic events with these guys specifically. I think that it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. Like, this is a DLC, to be very clear. You are expected to be level 50 before you start. So this is like an end game DLC, again, targeting whoops, that's Robin. Sorry, Robin. But what I was saying is that this is supposed to be something you play probably after the base game is over, after you finished all of the campaign, storyline, everything. This is when this even starts. So it's not something players will encounter, especially if they don't like the base game. Like, it's just more of the base game, to be very, very clear. And that sort of encapsulates everything about this update today for the game, is that Todd, I think, evaluated their options, and I think he looked at Starfield and was like, okay, most people who don't like Starfield, their core complaints are things that we can't really fix easily or certainly quickly or cheaply. And as a result, the only real option for them was to either spend 2 or 3 years rebuilding Starfield from the ground up to like get rid of the constant load screens, to try and overhaul the procedural generation tech and redo all of these things that people have been really frustrated by, or they could just look at the players who are already playing it, already liking it, and just give them more stuff. Oh. No. But it's still that weapon before you end up hurt.
So your little friend can shoot me anyway? Not a chance.
Intention to shoot dependent on threat level to self, not auxiliary human.
You've got a very short window
Okay.
to tell me why you're working with the Terrans.
I almost died. I killed most of them.
Well, it looks like you missed one. Wouldn't think you'd be palling around with it like it's your best friend, if that were true.
He's my friend.
Seems to be playing along as an ally for now. But you think that's going to last forever?
All the more reason to keep an eye on
So
it.
you haven't bought into its story fully yet then? At least you're using some shred of sense. At the very least, the fact we're even having a conversation right now means it's worth entertaining for the moment. But I'm not letting you two off that easily.
Okay.
If you're vouching for this thing, there are going to be conditions.
I'm sorry, who are you?
Not thing. Delta.
It's like you're dictating the situation right now. I don't know who you are. Like, you're not in the power seat right now. The robot with the gun is, okay? We are following his lead on this one. But anyway, like I was saying, I just think that Todd evaluated options and realized to overhaul it into something that the critics would really like would take so much time and money. It would basically be a sequel, and it wasn't worth doing at that point. So they decided to not bother trying that and instead just give core fans that really like what it is already some more stuff to sink their teeth into. A new currency for endgame crafting, a new enemy archetype to fight against with dynamic encounters, a cruise mode that allows you to freely travel within solar systems, which is much more immersive. Does it magically change the game? No. I mean, technically it's faster to load between locations, but this is way more immersive, certainly, if you really want to get like lost in the galaxy, exploring and trying different things. It is legitimately way more immersive that way. I mean, this is legitimately like a cool thing that they're doing. As you can see, you get close to it, it'll kind of slow down to a cruise. I'll exit cruise mode. There you go. Or slow down out of the cruise, rather. And boom. We keep playing. Like this is the core loop. But if you're looking at this and you're like, yeah, I never really liked Starfield and this seems lame, it's not going to magically change that. Oh, I need to reroute energy. Oh God. This is why I shouldn't talk while doing combat in space. It's a bad idea. I gotta focus. To their credit, since launch, they have added a lot of stuff to the game. Even some things you would expect they would have had at launch, like for example, the on-planet like surface maps. These were a late addition. After like a year, they added maps to the game, which I know sounds insane, but like literally, they didn't have maps on planet surfaces or locations until after launch. And I think that that's just one of the broader problems with Starfield, is that their priorities were all over the place. Like they wanted 1,000 planets, they wanted space exploration, but they stopped to ask, you know, whether they should. They were focused on whether they could and the tech it needed to make that happen. But the way that they did it ended up disconnecting players from the core loops that people really enjoyed about Bethesda games, and it led to situations where they didn't do basic things like surface level maps that they did add in later, but it's still remarkable that that ever happened to begin with. Like Starfield is legitimately a cool game. There's a lot going on here that is legitimately cool, but those like core things that people were frustrated by and underwhelmed by at launch are always going to be here. The fact that like humans are exploring the galaxy and then there's this city with maybe like 1,000 residents as the capital. It's like, just don't think about it too much. Don't think about it too hard. It's just one of those games where you have to turn off parts of your brain to enjoy it. And you know, some people can. I like saw one guy come and chat the other day and he was saying how he had over 800 hours in the game. Oh my God. And you know, he had a great time with it and really, really enjoyed it. I don't know what on earth you do for 800 hours in a game like this, but he found something to do. Got a problem? She needs some DLSS 5 on that face, tell you what.
16 times the detail.
But I think at the end of the day, the Terran Armada DLC so far, I think is solid. It's like for $10, you get a new faction, new enemy types, new weapons and stuff. That's fine. That's cool. I'm totally fine with that. As for like other things in it, like the cruise mode, which is part of the free update, that's legitimately cool. And when you consider the other improvements, Starfield is a much better game than it was at launch 2.5, 3 years ago. But at its core, it's still Starfield. And that's just, there's no changing it. It is what it is. And I think it's a reflection more generally and broadly of what Todd's opinion is of the game. I don't think Todd sees anything wrong with Starfield. I don't think he thinks there's anything to fix. And so people keep being like, oh, are they going to have a Starfield 2.0 update? Are they going to overhaul it into like a freaking Cyberpunk 2.0 level overhaul for Starfield? No, because I don't think Todd sees it as being in need of major overhauls. I think he's totally fine with it. You got to remember, Bethesda's stats show Starfield as a success. For Bethesda's stats, they're looking at Game Pass numbers, which are primarily tied to hours played. And they have a lot of players, like I mentioned, the one who has been playing this since launch and has hundreds of hours in it and is spending money on paid mods, which they care a lot about, obviously. And Game Pass numbers, I'm sure, are really, really high. And so for him, he's just fine with how things are going. And I don't think he sees the need for any sort of major overhaul or fix, because I don't think he views anything as wrong. And I think that's borne out by the defensiveness of some of these people that worked at BGS when people complained about Starfield being boring at launch, and they brought up like, well, when astronauts went to the moon, they weren't bored. I think that that's a general company approach, which is that if you don't like it, it's nothing we did, it's a you problem. Get over it. And that's why I just don't think anything is really going to change. Even if they were to look at some of these things and be like, oh, well, maybe that's a good point. They might work on it, but it's going to take a year to get the update. This free cruise mode update is legitimately an improvement. I can't believe it took 2.5 years to get, but it's better. And same thing with the rover, that's better. It took a while to get, it took a full year to get, but it's better. And same thing with like surface maps, took a while, but we got it eventually. But at its core, Starfield is what Starfield is, and it's not going to magically change. So if you were somebody that didn't play the game or didn't connect with it at launch, the improvements make it better, but it's just better Starfield. If you don't like tomato soup, better tomato soup is still tomato soup. You're just not going to like it, and that's okay. For me, I just find it mediocre, and some of the core problems of Starfield are going to be omnipresent. There's no getting around it because it's how the game was built. It's the priorities they chose to double down on, which I think were made in error. I think, like I said, Starfield is the worst type of game. I thought those were ships. Those are freaking animals. No, that's a tree. What? Do I have a scoped gun? Okay, well, foliage is floating. Okay. You can't make this up. You can't make this up. That's crazy. Okay, well, it's a Bethesda game after all. What are you gonna do? Dude, no, those are birds. See, birds are okay in the sky. That's okay. Trees shouldn't be there. Trees are a no-go. But like I said at the top of the video, I expect that this is probably the last video I make on Starfield, potentially ever. And that's not because I'm like quitting or rage quitting or anything. It's because I think that this is sort of the end of the line. I am looking at like player counts and stuff. And when you look at the 1 year chart, it's really impressive on Steam. Yeah, that's a huge spike. Right now they're at 19,000 players that just hopped back in. But it's when you go to the max that you see the problem, you know, that they started at like 330,000 at launch, and the first expansion went to 22,000. This second big update, expansion, DLC, whatever you want to call it, is at 19,000. They might get to the same level. Who knows? We'll see as the day goes on where they land. But I can't imagine that Xbox is willing to put millions on the line to develop another expansion or DLC for it. I just don't see that happening. So I think they'll do continued paid DLC and paid mods and stuff like that. I don't think that's going anywhere, but I don't personally expect anything crazy different to be done. I don't think they're going to have another expansion. But what is cool is that now you can do things like cruise mode, and you can like go and right now Artemis, you know, famously is going from the Earth to the moon. So here's Earth right here. We can actually do it ourselves. There's Luna in the distance. We can actually go there ourselves and fly straight from the Earth to the moon if we want to. Forgive my ship that looks like an apartment complex or a strip mall. I previously on another save, which I loaded into here, was testing different paid mod habs and seeing if the Bethesda paid ones were better or worse than like the modder provided ones. And the modder provided ones are cheaper and better, just in case you were wondering. But as we loop forward here, we'll pick up speed here in just a second, and you'll see us really get going, and we'll arrive at the moon very, very quickly. Oh my God. And we're fine. But just like that, we can go straight to the moon from the Earth, which is really, really cool. Does that magically make you like procedurally generated environments? No, it's still Starfield, but that's cool. And so I guess that's kind of where I'm leaving it off, is that I'm like, Starfield has some stuff that's cool, but it doesn't make it fun. And that's kind of the problem. At the end of the day, that's the problem. In addition to like, you know, the paid mods and the over monetization of every aspect of it, and the weird fact that Bethesda at this point has a financial incentive to leave holes in their games for modders to fix for a price, so they get free labor and get a cut of the pie every step of the way. There's all that going on too, but at the end of the day, Starfield is like a cool idea that just isn't very well executed. Technologically, it is incapable of living up to its potential, and even when they do achieve something like this, it's cool, but it's just not fun for a game like this beyond like the initial novelty. So if you're interested, check it out. It's on PlayStation today. So there's that. It also, of course, is on Steam and Game Pass and all that stuff. But I think this is where we leave Starfield officially. We move on from it. We say goodbye to Todd's baby of Starfield, and now it's all eyes on Elder Scrolls 6, which is crazy that we're here, but that's the next big thing on the docket. So what I want to know from you guys in the comments is whether you expect that to come out in 2028, 2027, or some madmen think it's coming out this year. I cannot fathom why you would think that, but some people think it's still coming this year, which is insane. So let me know your prediction for Elder Scrolls 6's launch here in the comment section below. My prediction is late 2028 at the earliest. That's my expectation. So I'll leave it there. But with that said, thank you for watching. I love you all desperately, and I'll see you in the next video. Hugs and kisses. Bye-bye.